What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Detroit Lions podcast here with Bischoff and Brown. He's Scott Bischoff. I'm Russ Brown. We're back. Lions win. I don't even know what to make of it. It's the craziest thing. We'll get into it. But Scott, my man, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Look, 8-2, second best record in the NFL. You can't complain. No matter how ugly it was. It was uglier than we thought it was going to be, but we'll take the game. We'll take the win because it's hard to win in this league. And I think it was maybe a reality check for the Lions, maybe for the fan base this past weekend against the Bears, no matter the opponent, good, bad, indifferent, elite quarterback or non, coming off an injury or healthy. It doesn't matter what scenario you throw. It's hard to win. And They didn't play their best. 4 turnovers in total, 3 interceptions from Jared Goff, which is very uncharacteristic of him.
Should have been
they found
4.
a way. Huh?
Should have been 4.
Could have been 4, and one would have been a pick 6. Yes. Jalen Johnson.
That was the most egregious throw that he made. Like, that you had a tip ball that goes right to a linebacker. You have Laporta get sort of picked by Jaquan Brisker on the first one. That's not on Goff. Goff did not play well at all. But the pick, the dropped interception down at the goal line where he threw the ball out to the flat and there were 2 defenders in the flat and it hit one defender right in both hands and he would have gone 100 yards, 99 yards. But the problem was Laporta's standing about 10 feet behind both their defenders there. Just like, hey, and it was just, Goff just had one of those days where he just wasn't necessarily seeing it. But, I don't know they're going to play as bad as they did on offense the rest of the year. That was not a good performance on offense. It just wasn't until they needed it. And then, it was nuts. It was just crazy.
To be down 12, 4 minutes left, I'm curious in the comments from everybody as you rate, review, and subscribe here to the Detroit Lions podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Who left early?
Well done.
Yeah. I'm so curious who left early for this game. 12 minutes, down 12, 4 minutes left. I know I would be considering going to the exits, but I would have waited until the last, the second to last drive that they had with the JMO touchdown, which credit to him. We talked about that last week going into this game. We needed him to make a big play. We felt like he was due for a big play. He was doing the little things correctly, and he ends up making the big play. It was great. It was great to see, and it even resonated after the fact as far as Dan Campbell, Jared Goff, the team, and I'm curious your spin on it. They're like, he's earned his keep, and that's so great to see because it feels like 3-4 weeks ago that was not how everybody felt. It kind of felt like everybody was getting ready to get the pitchforks out, myself included. I wrote an article for the Lions Wire talking about my patience running thin, and it should have been running thin. But I understood it from the same point of like, okay, he didn't have a really big rookie year because he didn't play much, but just a great catch. And his detail as well of the route, of the decision that the safety has to make. He's got the pylon route, the route underneath. It's a high-low concept. It was beautiful.
And we talked about it last week. Does that kind of stuff with him, I don't know how one person covers him. I just don't. And I know it sounds a little sophomoric. He's uncoverable, but with his speed, the way he runs routes and the way he breaks them off, defensive backs in his pedal or whatever running with him, and as soon as he catches where he's got leverage on them, he goes the other way. Mm-hmm. He's too fast. You just can't cover. You can't cover him like that. That was a huge play in that game. I mean, they really needed to score that fast, like that, and put some pressure on the Bears. And then the Bears literally, we've seen this a million times. The Lions have been on this end of things a whole bunch. Like that last possession was just absurd for the Bears. Not I guess the second to last possession.
Right.
The two runs to Herbert. Yeah, the 2 runs to Herbert and then the deep shot. It's like, it just seemed really, it was almost like they resigned to punting. And we saw the Lions refuse 2 weeks ago to give the ball back to an offense that was going to potentially drive down the field and beat them. When the Bears settled to do that.
Yeah.
And the Lions drove down pretty quickly and beat them. And it's just like, it's just different organizations, at different places in their builds and that kind of stuff. But big picture for me was just the fact that they were able to get out of that game with a win, as ugly as it was, is important. Like you don't play great every week. And, you're going to lay an egg here and there. They definitely played like that on Sunday. They definitely struggled. And it was obvious right. I don't know when you felt it, like, but it was like early when we had a little bit of, in our house watching the game. It was like, oh, it was going to be a long day. So,
yeah, it was
definitely come out of that with a win's huge.
Right. No, and I kind of felt the same way early. I was like, okay, this is a weird game. I don't know. Maybe they'll make some adjustments. And then they had the strong drive to close out the first half and got the score. And I was like, okay, maybe they're going to fix this now. Maybe they're going to make the adjustments and we're going to be okay. And the third quarter was less than ideal. And again, as the time it just started ticking away. I mean, there was 7-8 minute drives from Justin Fields and the Bears. Some drives were like 14 plays long. Yeah. And it's like, that's what the Lions do to other teams. And they haven't had this done to them in a while. So it was like it was a reality check. And it was one of those where it's just the identity of the team. They scratch and they claw and they keep chipping away no matter the circumstance. And really the only time I think they ever waved the white flag was against the Baltimore Ravens earlier this year when it was a demolition. But this one is different, and it was a division game, and division games are going to be tight. And I think when you see these big spreads, I'd hold off a little bit if you want to put the mortgage on the Lions -9 or whatever, because they're going to be tighter games. It is what it is. They mean more. It's a division game, and it meant more to the Lions to pull this one out. It was great. It was a great win. We wish the Chiefs would have pulled it out last night against the Eagles as we record this on a Tuesday evening, but it is what it is. Lions have the 2 seed. The way it's going right now, it's pointing to the Vikings. If things keep going the way the Vikings have been playing, they didn't win this week against the Broncos, but things are pointing well. But yeah, it's just a great win. I will say defensively, I don't know how we fix this defense. We talked about it in detail last week. I will say, and again, they only gave up 26 points. The defense played well, considering giving up the ball 4 times, 4 turnovers.
Yes. Yeah.
26 points. You can't really complain there. I will say there's just
what I'm saying about about Chicago's possession at the end there. It's like you have Justin Fields, and he has been really good. He was really good Sunday.
Yeah.
Really good.
Best
he overthrew a couple passes, but still, like, if, let him run, he will get you first downs. And you didn't even, like, if you're a Bears fan, you would have had to look at that and think, what are we doing? Like, let him run. If you're going to run Herbert, like a fullback dive kind of play, 2 plays in a row, just trying to peel time off the clock, kind of. I think you could have done better things to at least pressure the Lions defense where the Lions are at their weakest, which is defending running quarterbacks. But they did stiffen at times. The big play to DJ Moore was a nice play. It was a nice throw. Nice play. But, No,
and I will say, go
ahead. Go.
I will say, defensively, they have got to stop with this single high safety look. It is hurting this team. They just Kirby Joseph is off right now. He has a lot of range to play the ball when it's in the air, but when he's got to split the field and find a way to get from one side to the other, you're asking for a lot for a guy that I don't even know if he's fully healthy. I don't know, but there's times where I get very frustrated watching some of the performances from him, because he's very good. One of my favorite players a few years ago coming out of the draft. I loved the rookie season, but there has been times these last 2 weeks where I'm like, play the ball, and then he plays the guy, and then he's not taking the right angles to where he needs to be.
Like over pursuing a little bit?
Yeah, he's over pursuing. And then beyond that, they'll take Kirby and they'll invert him back rather than inverting him down. And they'll go with the too high safety look with the cover 2. And they did this early in the game. Amon-Ra St. Brown's brother, ESB, he caught a ball on a deep over route and no mid-hook defender whatsoever. They split the field. They inverted the safety back, and he took that side. It was Kirby Joseph, and Brian Branch was the single high safety to the play side, and he took the deep half to the other side. Well, our corners had flats, curl to flats, and there was no depth from the middle linebackers, and that was what I think made some differences defensively, and I think that's where a lot of the issues are starting to come up, is certain linebackers and certain players defensively are just playing out of position and not getting a lot of depth. And one of those players too is Jack Campbell. Like, I just tweeted this out not too long ago, and he's close. Jack Campbell is close to a breakout game, and he is in position so many times. Like, there's a play early in the game, one of the first plays of the game. Aidan Hutchinson's not playing discipline. It's a zone read. He follows the outside zone to the Foreman, and he knifes inside. And Jack Campbell is right where he needs to be. He sheds the block. He scrapes. He's right there meeting Justin Fields. But because there's no edge presence on that side, there's no slowing Fields down. He gains steam. He makes a move, and that's it. And it's like those little tweaks. Certain guys are they're not in sync. And if they can find a way for everybody to kind of do their job again, they're going to be just fine. But 29 points per game over the last 4 games is concerning for me.
More, yeah, a little. You think
more than it's been recently, right?
Yeah, but you see glimpses of when it looks right. I would say that the Lions missed a lot of tackles, or at least it felt like they were in position to make tackles where they didn't, specifically on Fields. And hey, he's really good at that. So you kind of have to accept it. We talked about it in last week, was just accepting the runs and the big plays that he does make. But, specific to their safeties, it does look like they're over pursuing a touch. I know we looked at it and we talked about it last week, just maybe simplifying things, but that's a very outside perspective. We don't know exactly what they're trying to do or what they're asking their guys to do. I just know that when you look at Kirby Joseph and you look at Tracy Walker, there are moments when they do look like they're out of position with their leverage and in their pursuit. And that's generally going to take you from possibly making a stop and getting off the field to giving up a first down kind of stuff. So definitely reasons to be spooked by, the 30 points a game kind of thing. It's a nice time to have a team like Green Bay with their struggles coming in.
Yes.
It really is. Green Bay over the last little bit has not been a very good football team at all. Mm-mm. They're a dangerous team. They have dangerous pieces on defense. They have weapons on offense. I would expect, just looking at what the Lions have done the last couple of weeks, I would expect Love to have a reasonable game. Mm-hmm. I would hope that the Lions can get some pressure on him, but it just seems like they're just off on defense a little bit. But 8-2. Yeah, there's problems. There are issues, but they're 8-2, and everything kind of opens up. So I don't know what I mean. I'm sure you have thoughts. What do you think about the Packers right now, both offensively and defensively? What problems did they present What do they do well? What do we have to worry about?
I mean, they don't do much well offensively. And I mean, they just don't. I mean, I will say, and again,
that's what's going on in my brain, and I didn't want to say that. Like,
I'll say it. I don't care. I've been getting roasted from Lions fans for. Okay, I want to get your spin on this. I wasn't going to bring this up, but I want to bring this up. But I'll get into the Packers. We're putting a bow on the Bears. We beat them 31-26. Great job. 8-2. First time since 1962. I don't know what anybody was doing in 1962, but my mom wasn't even born yet. So, I mean, craziness. But I had a tweet from the night of the draft. And I wrote, and I don't have it up, so I'm not reading it verbatim, but it was a very small tweet. I didn't say anything bad. And Lions fans found it this past weekend and ripped me to pieces for nothing. I said, passed on Bijan for Gibbs, passed on Laporta, or passed on Michael Mayer for Laporta. I mean, okay. Or I said, I mean, okay. That's all I said. And then I think, I don't even think I said anything after that.
Do people not remember what the reaction was after day one of the draft and then early in, like,
people thought we had the worst draft ever for what we did.
Yeah.
Drafting Gibbs, taking Gibbs that early, taking Campbell, getting Laporta, like whatever. But anyways, I'm like looking at it. I'm like, I didn't even say anything. I didn't ask for anybody to get fired. I didn't call these guys bums. It didn't go with what I thought was a strategy that made sense for this football team at that particular time.
Yeah.
They needed help defensively, which looks like it shows right now, but we have a fun-ass offense, and we have Laporta, we have Gibbs. Those guys are key pieces. Campbell, like I said, is getting close. Branch is a stud. We know he is. He's still kind of playing off a little bit. I wonder if he's 100%. But yeah, I mean, like,
we'll get back to this. Just settle something for me, because I'm convinced that we've busted through we've created a hole in the time-space continuum, and it involves his mouth guard.
Yes.
The green, like, I have never seen him. I implore somebody. That's a big word, and I'm going to have to Google that, because I don't know
why he does that.
No, I know why he does it, but I've never seen him take it out of his mouth and jam it in his helmet.
Oh, yeah.
I've never seen it in his mouth. Like, what happens? Are we seeing, like, the very fabric of the NFL get exposed in front of our eyes via his mouth guard? What's happening? That's it. I don't know why I went on that little tangent, but go ahead. Carry on with what you were talking about.
No, I don't know why. I mean, I know, like, why he wears the mouthpiece, like that one. And I thought earlier in the year he had one that would dangle from time to time. I think it was purple, but I don't even know if that's been back on. So I don't know. I mean, but he just, again, he also seems a little off, but he's a fine player. He's so effective when blitzing. But yeah, no, I don't know. I just found that very interesting. Back to the Packers. I don't know.
No, I mean, we can talk about that, because it was totally reasonable on day one to look at Bijan Robinson is available to you, and you said no, and you did trade down, but you took Jahmyr Gibbs over Bijan Robinson, and there are very few people who can legitimately tell you that they liked that decision in a vacuum. Like, okay, Gibbs over Bijan. Okay. You know what I mean?
But these fans are the same ones that in February are tweeting out that they would love Bijan. Well, I wanted Bijan too. Like, I mean, come on.
I did too.
And imagine him, and I get it, like, he's not off to the greatest start of rookie running backs, but he's playing in a terrible place in Atlanta with Arthur Smith, who we admitted is a super trooper cop wannabe, bozo of a coach. And imagine him in this
destination thing. Like I don't think Bijan is perfect in an outside zone scheme.
Yeah.
I don't think he's great there. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I think Gibbs could be really effective there, but I think Bijan needs to be inside zone, some power stuff, but throw the ball a bunch to him. Like, just get him in space where he is just springy enough to run away from people and also difficult enough to tackle that he's going to make plays for you. And they just refuse to do that.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. But so I guess thinking back to day one of the draft and early in day two, the panicking about Gibbs and then Campbell especially, people lost their minds over that. And then going with the tight end, and to me, Mayer would have been fine too, but there was something that they saw in Laporte, and it's working out. It's fine. But for what we knew in the moment, it did seem a little bit like, they're deviating from the ways that you think they would have gone. That's all.
Yeah.
But we talked about this. Let's all take a chill pill.
Dude, and that's what I'm like looking at these comments, and I'm getting absolutely dragged. And I'm like, I offered people an opportunity to come on the podcast and talk with us just so I can light them up live in person, because I didn't say anything bad. But meanwhile, you look at it, you remember who I wanted on draft night. It was Christian Gonzalez. He's hurt for the year with the Patriots, but he would have been stud in this defense. I don't care what anybody says. It is what it is. We got Gibbs. I'm happy with what we have. I've broken down why they're great picks. I break it down every week. We talk about it every week. They're great picks. We have a great football team. We're doing great things. Let's not get mad at each other. It's Thanksgiving. I mean, come on. Anyways, speaking of Thanksgiving, Lions-Packers preview. We beat them once. I think we beat them twice. To go back to the question, what do I think of the offense? I think they're much worse now that Aaron Jones is probably done for, I would assume, the year with an MCL sprain. And I would assume by the end of, in a 4 or 5 week span, he's not going to come back. I mean, it's just, we're getting to the end of the line here. He's done. AJ Dillon, powerful back, but I don't see him being a guy that's going to shred us, especially with our run defense. So it puts a lot of pressure on Jordan Love. Jordan Love is starting to figure things out. It looks like he's building up chemistry and rapport with Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed very well. But Christian Watson is just not a guy that really terrifies me. He doesn't create a bunch of separation. He drops a lot of bad passes. And if you go back to the game against the Steelers, there's one that hit him directly in the hands, not once, but like 3 times, and he still dropped it. And I don't know. They've got a banged up offensive line. It just feels like a get right spot for a team that had a close call against the Chargers, an even closer call against the Bears. They need to iron out some things, and this just feels like the game to do that at home Thanksgiving. Maybe I'm sipping too much Kool-Aid, but
no, I don't think so. I mean, I if anything I've taken away from all this stuff is that I don't want to speak in hyperbolic terms about the matchups that you have. So if you think there's no chance they win, it's probably not reasonable to say that. And if you think that they're just going to roll through every team they play, it's the same thing. Like, that's a bit of an unrealistic view. Mm-hmm. A friend who works in the industry and had a chance to review what the Packers looked like last week texted me over the weekend that this upcoming game is the equivalent of a bye. Which, after looking at their O-line and D-line, the Packers their O-line, their D-line, just after looking at what the Chargers did to them, both running the ball and in a bunch of different ways, just like it's not good at all. Yeah. So it's another one of those. If the Lions play good or effectively enough, they should really have their way with the Packers in a variety of ways at home. So the question then is to me, can the Packers do things to make the Lions uncomfortable in ways to have them playing out of sorts? I didn't see the Bears making Goff look as uncomfortable as he did. And he just did not look comfortable, whether there was pressure or not. He just didn't look comfortable with his reads and throwing the ball. And then there were times where, tell me if I'm wrong, but like the ball coming out of his hand wobbling, like, mm-hmm. Is he having like a hand issue, or is there something that we just don't know about? Because there were times where it did look like, and this goes back a couple weeks, like he was hurrying throws, mm-hmm. Ball fluttering. I think it went back to Baltimore. I I might be making that up, but nevertheless, this week definitely there were passes that came out sort of wobbly. My father referred to him as Eric Hipple during the game, and Eric.
Oh no,
you don't remember Eric Hipple because you were.
I know the name though.
The ball was like you ever seen a duck after it got shot trying to fly? Yeah. That was Eric Hipple throwing a pass. So, Goff kind of had that vibe against the Bears, and he did the entire game. So it's like, can the Bears pressure him and make him, they should be able to. Rashawn Gary's a good player. He's a dangerous player. But there were moments last week where it was like, dude, what are you doing? It's 4th and 6, and you're offsides by 3 yards. It just almost mailed it in kind of thing where you just feel like back to it. I'm rambling on, but back to it. If the Lions play well, they don't have to play great. If they play a good game, they'll win this game and win it in a good way. And everybody should be happy on, Thanksgiving, 9-2, which sounds just incredible to say, but 9-2. It's tough to see, outside of something crazy happening. It's tough to see a real scenario where I think the Packers can slow down the Lions on offense. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? Tell me through Laporta Avenue or Gibbs. I can't think of anything that rhymes with that. This is stupid. In any way the Lions want to run their offense, I think they're able to get it done. If they want to run, if you want it to be Montgomery and power, and that kind of stuff, fine. If you want Gibbs in space, fine. If you want short throwing game with Amon-Ra St. Brown with some play action shots, cool. If you want to use Laporta to run to be your offensive guy, you could do that too. You could do all of those things and you'd be fine. Now you sprinkle them all together, and I just don't think Green Bay is really going to be able to stop that. So
no,
good vibes.
I'm with you. I mean, I think defensively, again, you got to account for Rashawn Gary, but he's going to have to match up against Penei Sewell or Taylor Decker, and I think those guys are going to hold their own against him. And I think when you look at what the Packers do defensively, as far as the interior part of the defensive line, they got a lot of depth and a lot of names, right? You mentioned Rashawn Gary, you've got Kenny Clark, you've got Devontae Wyatt, but this team is banged up. Offensive line, defensive line. We mentioned Aaron Jones. Christian Watson's been battling through injuries. Luke Musgrave's been battling through a couple of injuries. These guys are just not fully healthy, and they start off slow. They cannot get out of their own way. They have a lot of bad. I've always said this since really last year with the Packers. They always have poor play calling on 2nd and manageable, 3rd and manageable. So I'm saying less than 5 yards. And they just make some really boneheaded calls with Matt LaFleur. I think Jordan Love can hurt the Lions with his mobility because he is a mobile quarterback. But again, with the interior part of the Packers defensive line, the Lions' strong suit is being able to run the football. The Packers give up over 4.5 yards per carry. I think the Lions are going to be okay being able to run the ball with Montgomery and Gibbs, who Gibbs is just getting hotter and hotter by the week. With every single carry, he's getting more comfortable. And I just love, and you mentioned, with the weapons the Lions have, the diversity in their offense, the play calling, there's so much more to be desired with the Lions offense and even their defense than there is with anything that the Packers have to offer, because they just feel very one-dimensional. They try to run 12 personnel, 11 personnel. They run their pony package with 2 running backs. Well, now you lose Aaron Jones. Pony personnel kind of goes away unless you're bringing somebody up or you have Emmanuel Wilson back there. I don't trust that. You mentioned 9-2. I think it's very valid. I think this is a get right spot. And then just to the Jared Goff thing with his hand, I don't know if there's something wrong with his hand. I do feel like I jinxed it last week. I talked about his mechanics always kind of being under control, and I compared it to Jameis Winston from that week of last week. You guys can check that episode out, but it felt like against the Bears, he was very much throwing off his back foot, leaning
very
back.
much. Yes.
And you mentioned rushing. He was rushing some of these throws, and very different from Jared Goff. And I think it may be the pressure of just trying to make a play happen. And I mean, look, the Bears have some good defensive linemen, and they have some very good linebackers. Tremaine Edmonds does a great job getting depth. He's an athlete. Like,
yeah, for sure. And then like you look at Colby Sorsdale and the fact that he moves from the right side to the left side, and Goff looked rattled in that game. And I don't think Sorsdale played real well. And I mean, I know he had the one penalty, and I just think that flipping sides for some players it's not as easy as,
no, not as a rookie either. I mean,
but like, hey, you've gotten off the ball, kicking off your left instep onto your right foot for 4 or 5 years in college. You're in the pros now, and it's week 10 or whatever week it is. We're gonna kick you over the left side. Now everything's gonna be inverted. Cool.
Yeah.
That's hard. It's a hard thing. And I don't think he played great. And I'm not saying that it's his fault because that Goff was rattled or whatever there was. But it's something to consider. Like, Jonah Jackson's kind of important. Mm-hmm. We saw last week how important he is. They still were able to run the ball super effectively. I would say that, not to get back to the Bears, but the turnovers really, it just destroys your flow and your rhythm. Yeah. So I don't think that they ran for productive numbers, but when they needed to run the ball, they did.
Yeah.
Right. You had the Gibbs touchdown. You had the Montgomery touchdown. We do have to talk about the Hutchinson sack before we get out of here. We do.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Sometimes as a scout, and I don't know what you think about this kind of stuff. This episode is all over the place. Maybe I need to.
No, we're all over the place because we just experienced a win that we've never seen before. A Lions team in previous years would have lost that game. And I just talked about that with my dad on the phone. The Lions of old would have lost the game on Sunday, 32-14. They would have gone on and lost to the Packers on Thanksgiving. They would have lost to New Orleans. They would have lost to Dallas, and they would have lost the last game of the season. They would have not have won the division. They would have maybe gotten into the wild card, and they would have gone to Seattle and gotten choked out. And it's like, this team is completely different from what we're used to seeing. And it's just, we don't know how to react because I don't know. It's all foreign for me. Like, I don't know. I've never seen this team this good.
We're going through this together. Because I don't remember it like this either. And they 2013 was fine, but there were moments like, I think did they go out to Seattle in 2014? Is that when that was? Because I remember thinking to myself, you should probably call the Lions and tell them not to even get on the plane going out to Seattle for that game, that matchup, whatever it was, because they had no chance at winning that game. Traveling to New Orleans in the heyday of when New Orleans was running, everything through their through Drew Brees and all that stuff. Like that was just not a matchup the Lions were going to win. The Dallas game was a whole different thing, and that whole thing was some nonsense. But I don't remember this. Like, this is not a game, like you just said. This is not a game where they would have won in the past at any point. So the fact that they did it's a huge thing. For them to stay where they are in contention for the 2 and, within reach of the 1 seed, whatever it is, it's a huge deal for them to play as poorly as they did in a lot of ways, and yet still come out of that Sunday with a win. And, to me, the whole thing was as a draft guy. So back to that. There are times when you want guys who get drafted really early to make premium plays. Mm-hmm. And the guys who are worth taking super early show up in moments like that. So the Bears have the ball. They need to drive the length of the field to score, right? Or whatever, kick the field goal to tie the game. And on the first snap, you got Hutchinson finally beating Darnell Wright, finally taking on half man, and getting to the quarterback, stripping the ball out. But there's something he did. And it was, to me, it still blows my mind that he did this. And I wonder if he even knows why he did this. But this is what we talk about as draft people when we talk about instincts. Sometimes you do things, you don't know why you're doing them. But when he pushed Darnell Wright and forced him to kick the ball out of bounds, he didn't force him to, but he put him off balance and made him kick the ball out of bounds to end the game. It's just like, that is ridiculous. Like, so you beat him around the corner with speed. You got the power to rip, hand usage, all that stuff, the presence of mind to swipe at the ball. Ball comes out, and Darnell Wright might have fallen on it, but you push him as you're both running for the ball, and he boots the thing out of bounds, and you got a safety, and the game's over. And it's like, just the situational awareness of all those things for me was just like, it was incredible. And I know it seems like such a simple thing to talk about, but that happened. So like, I see him as the number 2 pick making premium plays like that. Kayvon Thibodeau quietly has 10.5 sacks this year.
Yeah.
Trayvon Walker,
not doing much.
I don't know, man. So, I just think that Hutchinson is that guy. Tons of pressures. They'll eventually turn into sacks. He'll get there. He works his ass off.
Yep.
But it just the presence of mind to pull that play off, it was crazy. What'd you think of that one?
I mean, it was one of those where I was talking to my son during the game. I'm like, we just need Hutch to make one play. All he's got to do is make one play, and it can change the outcome of this game. And that was earlier in the game. And sure enough, it was the last play of the game that he makes that play. But it's like, that's why you draft a guy like that, because I don't know if there's another player on the defensive line that would have been able to make that play. And not having him, like we've had in years past where we've had very mediocre players on the defensive line. And I'm not, discrediting the years of Kyle Vanden Bosch or Ziggy Ansah and Cliff Averill and all that, or Robert Porcher. We can go down this road. I know my history. No, you go to it, and it's like, you took this guy because he does stuff like that. And you mentioned the pressures leading to sacks down the road. It's all going to be there. And we talked about this last week. Like, he is very close to stringing together consecutive games with multiple sacks and multiple pressures and multiple big plays. And it could lead from this game here against the Bears to Thanksgiving against the Packers. And who knows what comes after that. I mean, it's all very possible, but like, the talent is there, the ability is there, and he showed it. And he showed why, hey, you guys can have some doubt. You can be unhappy with some of the, the statistics, but the stats are he's aligning wide a lot because he's got to try to not get chipped as much. He's got to try to get some speed off the edge to try to beat some of these tackles. And he's doing different things, and they're asking him to do different things. I honestly think they're doing it to see what works for later in the year, because they know what works. They've seen what works last year. They'll get back to that stuff. It'll all come back. And maybe that's what the problems are defensively. They're just mixing and matching, seeing what sticks with this unit, because that's what you do. I mean, it's a game of chess. You move the pieces around to figure out the way it goes. But no, I loved it. I loved that he got that opportunity, that big moment. And the defense needed that play. The offense didn't need to be out there for the game-winning touchdown and no time left on the clock.
You are 100% right. I didn't even think about that, but that's a great thought, that they needed that infusion of, we made this happen. That is a perfect way to view it.
Yeah, they needed it, and I think it's going to carry over to some success here against the Packers on Thanksgiving Day. I could be wrong. Who knows, right? But I just know that,
I'm sure the Twitter people will come after you if you are.
I know, but I'm pleased with the way this went, and I'm going to get roasted in the comments for my takes, but we're on the verge of potentially 9-2, and that is just so foreign to say as we get ready to play a team that has owned us my entire life in the Green Bay Packers. I mean, it's just it's crazy. It's a great.
It's, if anything, I'm going to use your words because I think it's perfect. It's a get right spot.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it is.
No, I think so. And I mean, I don't know. Any plans for the game? Are you going to the game? Can the people find you downtown?
No, I'll be planted. It's my my youngest son's 16th birthday that day too.
Oh, nice.
So
happy birthday.
Yeah. So thanks. So 16th birthday presents itself with some problems, but
Time's flying.
So we got that going on, and we'll be home. It's good. And then my wife and I and he are going to the New Orleans game. So maybe, as long as we're good over the next couple of weeks, maybe I see somebody on the road in New Orleans. You never know.
I hope so. You never know. Yeah. I saw a couple at the Raiders game. It was cool. So, when we pop into these games, we'll definitely let everybody know. It's always a lot of fun. But you got anything else for me? Anything more Packer related, Bear related?
No, we're good. We're good. I think it's.
I was going to get into Shaq Leonard stuff, but we got on a tangent, and I don't think we're going to claim him anyway. So we'll just move on.
Yeah, we're good.
And by the time this drops, he's already going to be claimed or not claimed. So
correct.
It doesn't really matter.
Yes.
Well, cool. Guys, appreciate. Yeah,
everybody.
Have a great Thanksgiving. Appreciate all the support. These episodes have been a lot of fun to make. We enjoy doing them. If you want more from us, just let us know what you want. Maybe we can try to do something. But as always, you guys can rate, review, and subscribe to the Detroit Lions podcast on YouTube, which is probably where you're watching this. Or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. And as always, you guys can follow us on Twitter at Russ NFL Draft and at Bischoff_Scott. He's Scott Bischoff. I'm Russ Brown. This is Bischoff and Brown right here on the Detroit Lions podcast.